Hi, everybody. Welcome to Studio B here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. We're back in the saddle again, and we see Blake Middleton checking in from the land of 10,000 lakes. We have a video from Blake today. A couple of new names. John Albert Collings, Alistair Murray, and Joanna Sharkey Zaino are watching with us. Hello to both of you, as well as Alistair Murray, who we've got a bit from him as well today, an AAAA. You can see there's no Julia over there in her station today. We'll give you an update on her. She's making progress. Ed Worley saying cheers. Gordon Smith, good evening from Denmark. Alistair Murray, we mentioned, checking in. Mary Longpree, welcome back. Dear Tom, looking great. Well, I don't know about that, but we shall see in a moment as we count down the final 10 seconds to our standard docking out ceremony here for show number 562. Welcome.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin. Yes, it's nice to be back. Andrew helped guide me through this crouton case of COVID, as did Nurse Partible and a few others. Christopher Gillingham, ahoy, Tom and Julia Breezon in Leamington this evening. Fair winds from Christopher and Jane over in Leamington. Greg Phillips, greetings from Paradise Point, Gold Coast. He's home after his sojourn through northeastern North America. And lots of others on. Gene Zaino, if I pronounce that right. Zaino. Tell us where you are, Gene Sharkey Zaino. Welcome to you. And lots of others checking in after we took last week off. Bill Wingrove, wow, you've aged since the last time I saw you in video. Is that true? I hope not. I'll tell you, the toughest thing about preparing for this show was shaving off a week and a half of heavy beard, but Julia would have not, she would have not thought kindly of me if I had not shaved before today's show. And speaking of which, let's get into it. Julia, our dear friend, co-host, she is still in the convalescent home after breaking a bone in her foot. And she's making progress. So she's getting better. I talk to her pretty much every day and try to get over there either tonight or tomorrow to see her. So I haven't been to couldn't go with COVID. I couldn't go over there and infect God knows who. Certainly, hopefully not Julia, but she's getting better. Doing better, hopes to be back soon. She's insisting that she's going to come back to the Commodore Suite upstairs, her apartment here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. And if she has to have a little bit of help, more than the little bit of help she's had, then she's going to. But she says she's not going into a home. She's going to get better and be back here at the Beach Street Yacht Club soon. I'm fine, still a little bit, as you can probably hear, a little nasally, but it was nothing much worse than a cold. In fact, not even that bad of a cold. I was, though, under orders from Mr. Dr. McIrvin and a couple others here in San Francisco to just take last week off. So I put up this notice last week, which a lot of you liked and a couple of you didn't. So here for equal time is another one. For those of you who thought it was, sexist to do a nurse, a sexy nurse, when why don't we do a sexy male nurse? So there it is for those of you who are into that sort of thing. I finally tested negative after it was on day 13 on Sunday. And, there's this residual stuff, but Andrew and others have said, just take it easy because while it's not clear that long COVID is anything other than case by case, but he said, look, with other viruses, if you don't take it easy, A, it'll take you longer to get over it. B, you might have longer term ramifications. So just put your feet up. And that's why last week we didn't do any shows. That's the first time since we've been doing 2 shows a week that we didn't do at least one. So thank you for the many, many kind wishes, all of you who checked in. We appreciate it very much. I'm going to do a new pre-start. This is a race committee barge. They anchored out in the lake at the Glenmore Sailing Club in Canada. And it's a cool club. I just saw the picture and then started to investigate a bit the club, Glenmore Sailing Club. They say on their website, we're a volunteer-driven club. Every boat sits out a night of racing to take their turn running the races, which many clubs do. My home club in Michigan does the same. Race committee volunteers go out on the barge, which you'll see in these photos does not have an engine. It must just be anchored out. And on the barge in the middle of the lake to start races and record the order of finishes. Joining the race committee, and I thought these were great points, and we talk about this on the show, but we should reemphasize them. Joining the race committee is a great way to understand how to set a race course, see the strategies boats use at the start of a race, learn from great volunteers. We have volunteers that have run national level regattas, this club in Canada, meet people in a social setting while supporting the racing, and get a lot of coaching while learning this role. All you need is a PFD, a life jacket. This is a cool club. I looked into it some more. It is in Canada. Look at their Burgee. The Glenmore Sailing Club has a bucking type bronco, I guess, has a horse, obviously. And that's because they are in Calgary, in Alberta. And Calgary, of course, the scene of, we had Winter Olympics up there. I was there in, 88-ish, something like that, the invitation of then President Paul Henderson of what was, IYRU or ISAP by then. And Calgary's a great town, and it's the home of the famous annual Calgary Stampede. It's the biggest horse show, rodeo, and so on, and it's a big party. It's a fantastic. If you ever get the chance to go to Calgary to the Stampede, and while you're there, go check out Glenmore Sailing Club, which is on a reservoir on a lake within the city limits, and a cool place at that. Chuck Wagon Races, Ed Worley is saying, is that true? I mean, I believe Ed. He probably knows. While we're on the comments, doing RC makes you a better sailor, Steve Gruber is saying. I totally agree, Steve. Serving on a protest committee increases your knowledge of the rules. Absolutely. Active sailors, Clark Chapin, who is an active racing sailor as well as a great race officer and race officer instructor. Active sailors make better race officers, and active race officers are better sailors. Absolutely. Ted Ryman down in Cape Town in South Africa saying it's a bit blustery down there. And indeed, Gordon Smith asking if the ice cream also helps. Yeah, I did during the first couple days of COVID, I did spike a temp, and that got handled easily by Tylenol. And I did raid, as I think I mentioned on a previous show, I went upstairs and raided Julia's fridge and got some chocolate ice cream, which I don't eat sugar, and I haven't had ice cream in memory, but it was great. And I think that helped as well. Belated Happy Halloween to all of you. Of course, that was last night. It was very quiet. It's kind of rainy and breezy and dreary here in San Francisco. I didn't have anybody knock on the door of the Beach Street Yacht Club last night. Not that I had the lights on or any candy prepared, because I was preparing this show. And I just want to recognize some cool shots. Many of you sent photos, videos, and so on having to do with Halloween. It's a very popular holiday, certainly here in San Francisco, and I would say across the states and in many of your countries. All Saints Day today, Hallowed Eve the night before? I can't remember. Big Spain holiday when we lived in Spain. This photo, thanks to Monica Diaz from the RC-44. What do they call it now? The 44 class circuit, a Russian boat called Blackwater with a pretty gruesome-looking kite there. Muskegon Yacht Club and many other yacht clubs throw parties on Halloween weekend, near Halloween Day, and I know that a lot of clubs throw junior parties too. The junior sailors throw parties at the various clubs, but thanks for sending in these various things. This is just one example of many. Does your club do a Halloween party wherever in the world? Also, there is, as you may have seen on my Facebook page, there actually is a Halloween yacht club. There's the Burgee. And by the way, I thought Balboa Yacht Club was the only club with an orange and black Burgee, but the Halloween Yacht Club, as it turns out, has that same colored Burgee, different style, of course. And do you know where the Halloween Yacht Club is? Steve Gruber's got it. Absolutely right. Stamford, Connecticut, where, of course, the Stamford Yacht Club, it's on the North Shore of Long Island Sound on the South Shore of Connecticut. But does any of you know how the Halloween Yacht Club got its name? Steve, do you know? Steve's the one that had the comment here. He probably knows. Steve saying also, I gather you didn't go to the parade in the hate. No, I didn't. One of the highlights of my time in San Francisco. They've Steve, they've cut back on the Halloween scene here and in the Castro. I know they used to have a big costume party in the Castro, and then there was some violence. I don't know, I think even before I moved here 10 years ago, for the 2013 Cup leading up to. So things are much tamer, and they did a big family style party in the Castro, I think Sunday night, last night. But if you spell Halloween backwards, it comes out as beer. If you've drunk enough, Jody Shields, thanks. Jody Shields is checking in. Peter Taylor in New York saying, I think BSYC should have reciprocity with the Halloween Yacht Club. Please raise it with the Commodore. Peter, I don't know the Commodore. Maybe you can raise it with him. Great idea. But nobody seems to know. ABYC Alamitos Bay Yacht Club, I assume, is what David Morse. ABYC Great Halloween Happy Hour and Halloween Regatta. Yeah, there's a great pumpkin regatta. I know in the Midwest, Flying Scot Regatta, and many others around. Happy Hour was the Friday before. Well, in any event, the way this Halloween Yacht Club got its name, according to what I read on their website yesterday, there was a family whose name escapes me that owned the land on which the club is now situated, and they donated the land to Stamford, Connecticut, to the city. And they donated it, and it was consummated apparently on Halloween Eve, Halloween night. And there was a park that then got named because of this land, got named Halloween Park, original. They've since renamed the park to the name of the family that donated the property, but the yacht club has been named Halloween Yacht Club in honor of that transaction and the family that gave the land on which the yacht club sits. It's city property, but they own their own clubhouse. Since we got to talk about Halloween, and several others of you sent in nice submissions. Thank you. Thanks to Graham Sweeney. This from up in Scotland, and Shetland has had its own unique blend of tradition influenced by Christianity, with its roots firmly placed in old pagan customs. One of the most enduring traditions is to go, I guess this is guising, as in disguise, guising. John Graham's Shetland Dictionary states that to guise is, quote, to go in disguise at a festival, unquote. And we might be expected to ask someone, forgive me, Graham, is Duguine a guising this year? Are you going a guising this? When we were growing up, we would go guising, and I still encourage my children to do the same. So you see some of the costumes there in the background of that slide. Here's another slide of costumes, and apparently this dates many centuries ago, not recent. Similarly, a guiser, I like this word. We have to start using this word, guiser, like a hoser, or we can think of some other words, is a, quote, person is disguise, a person in disguise taking part in a festival, Halloween, Christmas, Hogmanay, what's that? Up Helia. Guising is not a Shetland word. It's thought to have come from English in the late 15th century. However, it seems to have persisted in Shetland, where it has fallen out of use elsewhere. We might dismiss Halloween as a purely American import into Shetland and the UK more generally, but Shetland did have its own version of Halloween in centuries past. Again, thanks to Graham Sweeney for sending that along. And then several of you sent this. I won't play the music because I don't want to get a copyright strike, but it was about flying. Anybody identify the sails on that yacht? The brand? Was that a Catalina something or another? I'll run that again. I thought that was a pretty cool, Ted Ryman. Thanks. I'm going to back that up and run that again. And a lot of you saw this. This was on a sailing website, Facebook page, something, but it was very cool. And can you ID the sails? Any idea? Originally from Hong Kong, that sail-making company was, and I don't know if it's even still around, an Aussie who was making sails in Hong Kong. In fact, the only reason I know those sails is, well, they were popular back in the, 60s in the FD class, Flying Dutchman class, a few others. My dad and mom won a national championship in the Rebel class using they had been using Boston sails from Mount Clemens, Michigan all along. And when he won the nationals, Boston sails, the the Boston sail-making company, the owner and his son called up and said, congratulations, can we do an ad with you about using our sails? And my dad said, well, sorry, but I was using these sails, well, this company's sails, with the upside down, it's not a boomerang or a chevron, Raleigh Tasker sails. Anybody? Neil Pride? Nope, still around. Greg Phillips. They're using Witchard fittings to hold. Raleigh Tasker is the name of that sail-making brand. Thanks again to Ted Ryman, who, among others, sent that to me. And Ted sent me the HD version of it, hence why I used it. Karen Robertson, Neil Pride. No, Raleigh Tasker. Now, does anyone know if Raleigh Tasker, maybe you can Google it, are still around? Raleigh Tasker was a great mate of mine. Alistair Murray is saying, no surprise, everyone's a great mate. And I mean that in a loving way. Alistair Murray is such great friends with everybody. He's the new president, as we reported to you a couple of weeks ago, of the Australian Yachting, what is it called now? Australian Sailing Australia. They are using Witchard fittings to hold her up. Jody Shields is saying, Fraser sails. Nope, not Fraser sails. Now, Clark Chapin has given us the definition to hogmanay, I guess it is, Scots. In the Scots, word for the last day of the old year is synonymous with the celebration of the new year. Ah, got it, in the Scottish manner. So it's New Year's Eve, I guess. Got it. Well, you learn something every day here on Sailing Illustrated University, as Peter Stevenson calls us. What day is it today? Here's your only clue. Anybody recognize that demarcation? While you're thinking about it, Alistair saying Tasker Sails is still making sails in the world's biggest sail loft in Phuket, Thailand. Alistair's been recently and several times. Raleigh died about 8 to 10 years ago. Secondary meridian, Stingray's close. He's got it. Greg Phillips saying Raleigh died some time back. He was a very prominent sailor on his yachts. Sitka, I guess it is. Back to our what day is it today? Hi, Fritz Mueller in Miami. You recognize that line, that fitting in the floor, the equator, Fritz Mueller is asking. Ted Ryman's got it. Alistair Murray's got it. GMT in Greenwich. Steve Gruber's got it. The prime meridian. And today is indeed Prime Meridian Day, among other things like it's World Vegan Day. And Ted Ryman thought he had a couple of clever things, but I struggle with veganism. I struggle to talk. That feels better. It's Prime Meridian Day. And as you all know, it's the Prime Meridian. There was a big fight over where it should be. And I still think China still uses Beijing as their Prime Meridian. I think I read somewhere, and the French wanted Paris as the Prime Meridian. The Spanish wanted Cadiz. Who knows? But it ended up in the late 1800s, by convention agreement, that it would be at the Greenwich, at the observatory in Greenwich. Prime Meridian Day is marked on November 1st each year. In 1884, the Prime Meridian was defined by the location of the large Airy Transit Circle telescope at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich. Sir George Biddle Airy, the 7th Astronomer Royal, designed the legendary telescope in 1850, 1 year before the first America's Cup, AC0. The Airy Transit Circle's crosshairs define 0 degrees longitude. Today we celebrate the Prime Meridian and its applications, including dividing the Earth into Eastern and Western hemispheres and setting up the global time zones. As you know, the meridians go around every 15 degrees, which is roughly an hour of time. If you divide the world into 24 hours, yada, yada. And various countries still use various things. And then on the other side of the Prime Meridian, of course, is the dateline to mark the other ends of the Eastern and Western hemispheres, respectively. You know, if you've been there, it's a fabulous, if you go to London and if you're a sailor, if you're interested in this sort of stuff at all, you go up to Greenwich, go to the museum, go to this observatory. It's just a fabulous spot. And today, on the 1st of November, is World Prime Meridian Day, among many other things. Fritz Mueller saying every empire claims at one time or another to be at the center of the universe. I think Boston still does, as a matter of fact. Don't they call them the hub? They call themselves the hub of the universe. It seems too wide. Isn't it supposed to be 1D? Well, and it turns out in reading about that, I guess, they with satellites and so on, they were getting much more precise as to exactly where that prime meridian or that particular meridian is. And it's about 100 meters one side or the other. I can't remember if it's east or west of where it's marked there at the observatory in Greenwich. AKA the anti-meridian still causes even pro software all sorts of problems. I guess your fog machine's talking about the dateline. Look at the eggheads on here. Everybody, we have so many bright, Fosey, making interesting observations. Gordon Smith, John Flamsteed, the first astronomer royal. Now, do you know Gordon Smith? Who appointed the first astronomer royal, the royal astronomer? King Charles the Deuce II. I don't know why I remember that, but I saw that in the course of researching this. John Flamsteed wanted the Royal Observatory to be in my home city in Derby, but the king kicked up a fuss and suggested the post might be up for re-interview, so it was in Greenwich. Is that right? I believe Gordon Smith. Jonathan Frank, it's a must-see, the Cuddy Sark at Greenwich as well. Absolutely. John Harrison's clocks are worth a look at the museum. Luca Craig, who's normally in Auckland, agreeing. And back on Raleigh Tasker, Alistair Murray is saying Raleigh Tasker lived from 1926 to June 2012. On his death, I delivered a large joint tribute at our yacht club to him and to the Stan of Ron Stan, who died in the same week. They used to race Sharpies. Nice class. Race Sharpies against each other. Thank you for that, Alistair. And we'll celebrate World Prime Meridian Day. I mean, you think about how important that was to navigation, to our sport, and continues to be to all sorts of things. So, nice thing to bring up. I get one of these websites or several of them that says November 1st is the world this and the local this. And I try to find some alcohol to keep Jody happy. Not really. Something that will appeal to all of us and try to spread it around a little bit, not just American or Australian or Kiwi or Brit, but whatever. And this one, of course, has implications for our sport, which we also look for as well. Let's get to the starting line. And as always, we like to start with our report, in this case, reports from John Emmett, who had filed, nonetheless, the diligent contributor that he is, in person in general, Olympic coach John Emmett, with the Coach's Corner. He, nonetheless, knowing I wasn't going to go live last Tuesday or Friday under nurses' orders and doctor's orders, I have two reports, the ones that he filed, which go nicely. They fit kind of hand in glove, from last Tuesday and last Friday. Here's the first one.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fosey. You join me once again at the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy. In fact, it's a very busy week. I nearly couldn't park in the little car park right by the building. It's nearly in the main overflow car park already. And the reason for that is it's half-term week. And I think it's a really special thing about sailing, that we're a sport that's there for everyone. So this week we have people in their first ever season in the Ilka 4, and we will probably have Olympians, or at least potential Olympians, doing this week. So it's a busy old week. Try not to walk into anyone. Hi there. Just going past the Andrew Simpson Centre on my left. Together we transform lives through sailing. Very, very true. And I actually bumped into Andrew Simpson's wife. His son is sailing at Castle Cove, which is, very special for me. So filming this one quite early in the morning, because it's going to be a busy old day. So I keep it short. But the nice thing about sailing is that we can all train together. So the youth squads, the transitional squads, the Olympic squads, everybody's here. So we've also got multi-classes, not just Ilkas. So we've got the 29ers, 420s, fantastic 2-man boats, and the feeder, obviously, for the 470 and for the 49er. 470 is just having their worlds in Israel. I remember actually training that venue very well. So I'm pleased, not too many laser rigs up in the air, so I'm obviously not that late. But yeah, it's really good that we all have this opportunity to train together, lots of boats on the start line, and it's one of the reasons, as well as a plethora of good coaches, that the UK does so well. And I think it's a busy week. In fact, I actually wonder if it's a little bit too much, because I guess some sailors will do 7 days sailing in a row, and even for the coaches that's hard, not perhaps so physically but mentally. Just coming up to my little boat now, so I'll have a quick sit down and chat. You'll probably see some of the top sailors in the background. But yeah, training is such an important thing, and the key thing is to make it fun, because one of the biggest barriers to a successful Olympic campaign is not wanting to take the cover off the boat in the morning. So you've got to love what you do, and it's always easier to do a good job when you enjoy yourself. So yeah, I feel very privileged to do what I do, and yeah, I can't wait to go out on the water myself. Hello, my legs, I'm still feeling it from the weekend. But have a great week, everybody, and see you on the show.
I totally agree with Blake Middleton. He's saying, I love John's updates. And John looks like, in that video from last Tuesday, looks the way I did about an hour ago. Krasimir Naumov checking in from Bulgaria. Nice to have you on, sir. Steve Gruber and others saying we're going to raise one to Bart, to Andrew Simpson. Bart Simpson, of course, died tragically here in San Francisco. Shame. Horrible. Tragic accident, but let's get on to John's second video from last Friday.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I think after this, I can give you a test for the layout of the academy. Having walked around it a lot, showing you guys around, and Tom and Julia just get well soon. Half-term week, so I was really keen to do the videos. Even if we don't necessarily have the shows, I think the things I'm going to talk about are really always true, and I'll try and make it a progression. So I was going to talk about fitness as I walk to my rib. So you can see there's quite a few ribs in the background, so I hope I get the right one. Fitness is really important. Fitness just means fit to do a task. So if you ask a 60 horsepower engine to do 70 horsepower's worth of work, then it breaks. And it's the same with us. So you need to be fit to do the task, and it doesn't matter how big your sail is. Oh, this is the Olympic committee boat behind me, if people recognise that. You need to be fit to do the task. So it doesn't matter how heavy the boat is, it doesn't matter how big the sail is. As soon as you're fully hiking, you're putting that stress on the body. And that means that you need to be fit enough that your body can support hanging out, that core strength, etc. So it doesn't matter how good you are at the 10 kilometers race, doesn't matter how much you can bench press. It matters whether your body is fit for purpose. And that hiking, as soon as you get to the conditions that you're fully powered up, the harder you hike, the faster you work. And that's why the conditioning is so important. And fitness, fatness, and actually health are all very different things. And I will talk a little bit about body weight as well, because that's a separate issue, and we are body weight crucial sport, but being fit is such an important thing. So I've just come to Idler, that little boat you'll see in the background as I walk back down the pontoon is what we use for setting the marks at Castle Cove Sailing Club, because everything is now over here, because yeah, it's beginning of the end of season. What it does mean is I've obviously walked past my rib, so this talk will be slightly longer. But yeah, this idea that in order to hike, it's only a body weight exercise, although there is leverage, but you need to be strong enough to do that. And that's also relevant to lengths of sessions, because it's when we get fatigued, that's also when we are more likely to have illness or injury. So people ask me a lot, you know, what do I need to work on in the winter? And fitness is often one of those absolutely key things. So wishing everybody to be fit and well, and hopefully we'll see Tom and Julia very soon. Oh, just to show you how focused I was in the chat, I think this is my rib here for today. So I'm going to go jump in my office and crack on. Right, collecting my radio. It's going to be a very fresh day on the water. Check my rib driving skills. Thank you. Time to go. Ilka 6's launch first in Portland Marina before heading outside. It's a nice easy place to get on the water, whatever the conditions. Pretty flat water in Portland Harbour. Taking the sheet here from the boom just provides a little bit more feel.
Sort of like ESPN with the music playing in the background. His videos get better and better, and always enjoyable. Shaven or unshaven? John Emmett. John Emmett Sailing. Get to the front of the fleet. We appreciate his submissions. I know you all do. My mother is saying, call me. I'll tell you about the last time you went trick-or-treating. Well, how do you know, Mom? How do you know I haven't done it since since I moved out as a teenager when I went off to college? Did I mishear, or did John mention Ilka Fours? I don't know if he did. Let's ask him if he's on, if he would like to comment. And Julie Aaron's asking, what is John's fitness regime? Maybe we should get John to do, how's this for an idea? Let's get John to give us, as a bunch, most of us are a bunch of, older senior type citizens, but still active sailors. Let's ask him to give us a fitness regime, what he thinks we should be doing for those of us that are our casual or maybe active racing sailors, and see what he thinks. So you can look at a guy like James Bland, and he's in the gym. I've run a video of him pressing a lot of weight and so on and so forth. He's sailing fins and dinghies, and he's not quite my age, but he's, I think, in his 60s. So it's a little different for all of us, but it'd be interesting if John gave us a little fitness regime. I think I agree with Julie Aarons. That would be a good idea. Speaking of James Bland, he's saying, okay, I had an important business hoisting sail. I just saw it on my Facebook feed while I was getting ready for the show in hair and makeup, which means getting a shower and a shave. No sun today in Austin, Texas, and resting after officiating all weekend for the CISA, which is the Southeast Interscholastic Sailing Association College Regatta. 22 races over the weekend. College regattas, they go bang, bang, bang. They have two divisions, normally an A division and a B division. As soon as maybe A goes out and runs two races, they come in, B runs two races. So they get more kids involved. Then they add up the scores, and you have an A division winner and a B division winner, and then you have an overall winner that combines the scores of A and B. Nice work. All of you on here, I'm sure, are volunteering in different aspects of the sport, and that's what makes our sport so cool, so great. That's a great idea. Baton Rouge is saying, get John to give us a little bit of a fit. And maybe he can come on and he'd take us through some exercises, John, if you're on watching. Otherwise, I'll talk to him direct. Jess Stingray saying it would be great if John, it would be great if John could do the fitness video dressed as that male nurse you have. I didn't say I had a male nurse, but that picture you mean that I had. Clark Chapin, I heard him mention Ilka 4. Okay. That's the problem with coming off COVID. If you, excuse me, I'll my mic so you don't hear me cough. Replying to Ted Ryman, pint curls are a great work. Even coffee curls are a workout. No, I mean, I'm almost 70, and as you all know, it gets more difficult to stay reasonably fit, but just staying limber, staying, as Andy Rose, my good friend down in Newport Beach says, who's a year or two older than I. He says, motion is lotion. That's what his doctors are telling him. You got to keep not only fit, but you got to keep moving. Get up. When I'm preparing the show, I'm sitting here in the studio. Some of you have seen this little room that's our studio. And I get up every 30 minutes, whether I want to or not, and move around, because otherwise, if I wait to get up an hour later, I'm all stiff and terrible and feel so. Motion is lotion. I like that. You got to move around and you got to get some exercise. And let's get John Emmett to help keep us all fit. And back on James Blandford, JFB, go look at his Facebook page, because he now has rigged the Pelican. And I saw the rig is up, the sail's up. He's doing his fitting, the thing's painted. And we're going to have James going to come on and tell us about that whole boat building project, which has been the love of his life, as far as I can tell, for the past, 6-8 months? It's been a long haul. Okay. Now, a couple things, this is kind of a makeup show covering what we didn't cover last week, having been dark on both Tuesday and Friday. And the first is the Rolex Middle Sea Race. And I'm going to play both videos. There was a promo video that I was going to run on Tuesday and didn't, but it's such a cool video. It's only a minute or so long. I'll start with that, and then we'll do the wrap-up video after that. Rolex Middle Sea Race in Malta.
Challenging, alluring, historic. Celebrating its 43rd edition, one of the world's most spectacular offshore yacht races, the Rolex Middle Sea Race. The Grand Harbour in Valletta, Malta, the impressive and striking setting for the start of this famous 606 nautical mile race organised by the Royal Malta Yacht Club. 118 yachts gathered from 24 nations, professional crews lining up alongside Corinthian. First to go, the multi-hulls, including an impressive lineup of 5 former Mod 70 trimarans. Following, a series of starts for different classes. Amongst those on show, Elusive 2, the 2-time overall winner from Malta, confronting a fickle breeze as she exited the harbour. For the watching public, a stunning and colourful spectacle to savour. And finally, to the biggest boats in the fleet, those in the race to be first home and claim line honours. Leading the final group out of the harbour, the 100-foot maxi Leopard 3, line honours winner back in 2009 and one of the favourites for this year. Ahead for all yachts now, the prospect of an enthralling 606 nautical mile racecourse, taking in an anti-clockwise circumnavigation of Sicily, featuring active volcanoes and wild islands, and finishing back in Malta. With light winds in prospect, a challenging and tactical race lies ahead. Join us for the conclusion of the Rolex Middle Sea Race.
Oh, a nice introductory video. Now here is the wrap-up video from just a day or so ago.
Historic, demanding, awe-inspiring. One of the most exacting offshore racing challenges of 2022, the Rolex Middle Sea Race. With the light wind forecast, the 118 competing crews knew that this year's edition would demand patience, tactical precision and faultless execution. At the front of the monohull fleet, the Maxis, and from the start an intriguing duel ensued between Leopard 3 and Bullet, both vying to be the first home. Bullet led along most of the north coast of Sicily before Leopard 3 retook and held the lead all the way to the finish line. She arrived back in Malta to claim monohull line honours, completing the 606 nautical mile course a little over 10 hours after the winning multi-hull, the Mod 70 Manor, herself triumphant following a close nighttime finish. Behind, the remainder of the fleet was still in the hunt for overall race victory, awarded to the fastest boat on corrected time. The failing breeze now favouring those already further advanced down the racecourse, including Eric de Turckheim's teasing machine. The French yacht crossed the finish line in the early hours of Wednesday morning to post an unbeatable time and become the overall winner of the 2022 Rolex Middle Sea Race. Reward for years of persistence for the owner and crew.
Well, it's a huge emotion for me and for my team to win the Rolex Middle Sea Race. It's such a great race.
A rewarding conclusion to this memorable edition of the Rolex Middle Sea Race.
I know, Mr. Turktime, and that's just such a nice video. Rolex, again, I say this every time, do such a wonderful job. Bravo Zulu to them, to the Royal Malta Yacht Club, and to everybody involved in what is one of the great ocean races in the world. Tunisia, the Stingray was the landmass you were looking at on the race course, but a fantastic, interesting course. And of course, this year it was very light indeed. And what took Jonathan or Andrew McIrvin will tell us, because I was talking to him all week about it, and he said, boy, it's really slow, and it's gonna be one of the longest ones in memory. But of course, last year it blew dogs off chains for most of the race, and they even shortened the race course, controversially. But Andrew McIrvin, speaking of the gentleman I just mentioned, good guy, also current Vice Commodore of the RORC. So give him our regards, Andrew. I haven't seen him in quite some time, but some very cool perspective. Blake Middleton is saying images around headlands, etc. in that video. Well, you got an active or semi-active volcano, right? Stuff in our sport is just an amazingly diverse and wonderful sport, isn't it? We are so lucky. My mother says that we're driving her to drink with all this talk about alcohol. She's never been a big drinker by any means. She's going to break. When I was there in August, I left a bottle of vodka because we didn't consume it all. It was just more for medicinal purposes. So I left it with her, thinking that maybe when one of my brothers was there, they might break it out. But, this thing about alcohol in our sport, I don't know what the cause and effect is, but, they say a drink or two is probably good for your health, big picture, long term. But I think any number of you, Coach Hammett will tell you, he thinks that because people who drink a little bit, or maybe a lot, but a little bit, are more social than those who don't. And it's the social aspect of our lives that keep us fit, keep us happy, keep us healthy. Yeah, sense of humor, two of you mentioned. But that's, for me, doing this show, we're not making a princely sum doing this, but it keeps me going. And I had a bit of a struggle after taking a week off and having a little bit of COVID, hangover, brain fog. I wouldn't call it brain fog, but to get motivated yesterday afternoon to start doing this. But when I got into it, and maybe you can tell now, I'm energized, I felt good. And the problem in doing these shows is not this. This part's the fun part. Reading all the comments, having the back and forth with all of you is wonderful. It's fantastic. It's the prep that takes the time and the energy, but it keeps figuring out what's going on in the sport so that I can curate that for all of you. But it's the same for Julia. She tells me she loves to come in here and sit over there in her chair on Tuesdays and Fridays because it not only keeps her going, but it helps keep her mentally sharp. And that's why she's missing this and can't wait to get back ASAP. Should we look at any other comments here? No worries about the finish line this year. Yeah, Andrew McIrvin was saying they had that controversy. Etna and Stromboli, I think Stromboli are active, yes. We're not the only example, but local clubs, but we're going to get a video from Blake Middleton who's saying we're not the only example, but local club has earned a valid reputation as a drinking club with a sailing problem. Well, that's what Jody Shields said I should be the fittest person alive. Mental exercise. Yeah, well, as you all know, the mental exercise is probably equally important as the physical exercise. Red wine is good for you. Julie Aarons is saying drinking is not necessary for socialization, but for most sailors, a cold beer on a hot day is refreshing. I just hate beer. I like beer, Julie. I'm with you. I like beer, but it makes me put on weight. And I guess it's Andrew McIrvin and others will tell you that beer has estrogen in it, and estrogen is what causes beer bellies. Because estrogen, the female hormone, helps fat adherence to the body, which is good for, you know, a mother that's carrying a kid or going to carry a kid. They get into a famine, they've got a little extra meat on their bones to help keep the kid going, keep the kid alive if she's nursing them and so on. So, and for the mother in a famine to be able to have that extra meat on her bones just to keep going. So I guess that's the theory about why beer gives you a beer belly. How was that? Beer, bread, in a bottle, Clark Chapin is saying. Okay. Bravo Zulu. I keep turning that down, and then I still reach for the over here for the audio control when that comes on, because at least in my ear, it seems pretty loud. We'll fix that in due course. 52 Super Series. Nice video. Introductory. First of two. Quickie, and that series took place the 25th through the 29th, and here's their rap video.
Well, it's the big finale today, the last day of the season here in Barcelona. It's been a long, hard year. Quantum Racing going on the water, leading the circuit by 12 points, with Phoenix chasing hard. It's going to be a difficult day, very light, and Quantum also on top of the table for the regatta. Let's see if they can do the double.
The guys did great work yesterday, put us in a pretty strong position, you know, but it's sketchy conditions today, and boy, it's just a little bit nerve-wracking, but I think we're pretty good.
Not nervous. Very light winds today. We're hoping we can get some races in to have a shot at Quantum, but yeah, it doesn't look promising at the moment, but we'll get out there on the track and see what happens.
Well, the race fleet did go on the water with high hopes, even in the light of a forecast for very gentle breezes. And they waited out through most of the afternoon. Even towards the end, there was just a few knots, a few ripples on the water, and the hopes remained. But in the end, an AP over A means no racing possible today. And so Quantum Racing win the final regatta of the season, with Platoon in second place and Provezza in third. And Quantum Racing win the 52 Super Series 2022 title for a record 5th time in the 10th anniversary year. And of course, 10th anniversary is the reason we're in Barcelona.
Yeah, you know, you can't underestimate Doug's influence on the whole program. You know, how cool is it that we sailed 4 of the 5 regattas with him, we won those, and then the one I steered, we were 4th. And, you know, it's one of those things that in the sport that you race and how we do things, you know when you're sailing with a good team, and you know how it all evolves and how everybody is together and how everybody balances each other.
Yeah, we're really happy with second overall. It's a great result for Phoenix, and Quantum were the best team. They won 4 out of 5 events. We were fortunate to win our first event there in amongst that. But the best team won the series, the best team won the Worlds, but we're happy that we got into second place for the series.
So the final standings for the 52 Super Series, Barcelona Sailing Week. First, Quantum Racing on 16 points. Second, Platoon on 18 points. Third, Provezza on 19 points. Also on 19 points, fourth placed, Alegre. The final standings for 2022, Quantum Racing winning on 146 points. Second are Phoenix on 158 points. Third are Platoon on 176 points. So that's it from Barcelona for the 2022 season. It's been a long, hard season. Congratulations to Quantum Racing winning in the end. Next year we're going to Saint-Tropez in early May.
Bienvenue Saint-Tropez 2023.
Bravo Zulu to the 52 Super Series, their 10th anniversary. They've been around longer than that, but it's got to be the best racing going. I think it's better than Sail GP. I think most of the guys and gals that are sailing there would agree it's the best professional series. You know, Sail GP is fine, but look at all the sailors and look at the success of this circuit. And then you saw Terry Hutchinson saying, well, the one regatta that I steered, we finished 4th, and the others that Doug DeVos, who's an amateur obviously, but a very fine sailor from Michigan, from the DeVos family, Amway family. And he wins. And I have a feeling Terry's being very kind and self-effacing, but when Terry's driving, I don't know who's calling tactics for him, but it ain't Terry So when Terry's calling tactics for Doug, they do better. And I think that's probably the magic in that formula. So Bravo Zulu to Doug and to Terry. We'll see if some of that spills over to their America's Cup effort coming up. Now, a lot of you commented about the whole situation with Barcelona and how light it was and the fact that they lost 2 days of racing. And I've told you, I've been telling you since that venue was announced that they will have the problem of light days. I mean, Valencia is the same way. And Monica Diaz is on here watching. She lives there in Spain and spends a lot of time in those two cities, as do any number of others of you. And it will be light. There will be many days that are unraceable. Same thing in Valencia, especially Valencia was earlier in the year. It was in the May, June. I can't remember when we did the Cup there in 07. The 010 Cup was another issue. That was in February, court ordered. That was cold, also light on several days. But the real problem in Barcelona is when there is wind, it's rough, and it's way rougher than for the amount of wind you get, because it comes in, the seaway comes in, bounces off that long breakwater. You know, you're at the western end of the Med, and if you get something out of the east and it comes in, bounces, or southeast, bounces off the breakwater, as we had there in the 92 Olympics, it's way rougher for the normal velocity of the wind. And they're going to have a lot of problems getting that series off. Mark Husted, who's on here, I'm not going to use his quote, but he sent me a note this morning, and getting these foiling monohulls, these AC-75s, to foil, and they're going to have to be kind of nose down and ass up, long rudders. There's no limit. There's no max on the rudder length. And they're going to have to be actually wave-piercing type boats, because they're not going to be able to fly above the waves the whole time. That's aerodynamically not probably all that great anyway. I'm getting my hand up here in front of the lights. But it's going to be very interesting to see the yacht development for the conditions in Barcelona. We shall see. Terry Hutch and Slingsby are en route now to Pensacola. Stingray saying, yeah, Slingsby has not been with the team yet, as far as I know, Stingray, so that'll be interesting. Julie Aarons, I love Terry. What a guy. Perhaps they can convert those giant offshore wind generators into fans. Gordon Smith, that was Jonathan Frank. Gordon Smith, Barcelona is a design problem that all were aware of when it was chosen. Well, they were aware of it. Yeah, okay. Gordon's a big defender of ETNZ in Barcelona. Bless your heart, Gordon. Yeah, let's see what else. Here on the TP52 comments, Bill Wingrove is saying, thanks, Bill, for that. Some of the absolute finest sailors in the world there in Barcelona. Blake is saying, yep. And then we're back on alcohol and activity and brain activity, and just the movie A Streetcar Named Stella. They're talking about beer too, but we're lucky just to have a wonderful sport and a wonderful community. And as my dad always said, my mother will vouch for this, Janice Davis, who says she's going to live to be 100%. She's not a big cocktailer, Mom. You have to be reasonably mentally and physically fit to go sailing and go yacht racing. You can't get a boat off the dock if you're not reasonably bright. And worse than that, if you get the boat off the dock and you're not reasonably aware, situationally aware in the changing conditions and reasonably bright, it's like flying an airplane. You get yourself into trouble and you hurt yourself, or worse, or the people that are with you. Great sport. Speaking of great sports, we have great sportsmen and women in our sport, and we have Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote. And as I said at the top of the show, in fact, we told you a week ago, more than 2 weeks ago, that Alistair, one had heard, was being elected. No surprise, because he's been the vice president for the last 2 years, and it's a 2-year term normally, and he's now been elected president of Australian Sailing, and we have a press release. I'm delighted. This is from their release. I'm delighted and honored to be leading the board of Australian Sailing, said Alistair Murray. Quote, outside of my family, the quote continues, I should say, outside of my family, sailing has always been my one passion. I've built my life around the sport through my involvement at clubs, which are the heart and soul of our sport, regattas, and the sailing industry. That was an editorial interjection there. Back on his quote, I look forward to continuing the fine work done by the previous boards of Australian sailing and building on that legacy. We will stop at nothing to ensure there are more people on the water in more ways, more often. I love that quote. Murray and his VP, Ms. Bruland, whose first name escapes me, will be charged with ensuring Australian sailing delivers on its freshly minted 10-year strategy, its 10-year plan, Sailing 2032. So bravo Zulu to Alistair and to his VP. There she is. Her name is Siobhan Bruland, who will serve for 2 years and presumably then, if she plays her cards right, will become the next president after Alistair. Alistair's AAAA today saying, I reckon this is enough for my A4 this week. This is a great honor for me, he writes, to accept the presidency of our national body, Australian Sailing. It is also a great opportunity for me to give back to the sport. So true, so good, so cool. Back to the sport that means so much to me. I began sailing 56 years ago and commenced working in the sailing industry 48 years ago. Sailing has been my hobby, sport, and passion since those beginnings. It has taken me around the world. It is responsible for the majority of my friendship group, which I think many of us could say the same. So many of my great memories, and it has put a roof over my head and food on the table for me and my family. I am looking forward to working with the great team at Australian Sailing to bring sailing to more people, hoping they will get as much from it as I have. Alistair. Big hugs, Alistair. Nicely done. And that is his Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote for today. I love the guy. He is one of the coolest contributors in our sport that I've had the great pleasure of knowing now for, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades, I guess. Alistair Murray. Bravo Zulu. Speaking of Fozy, let's go on to, I love this music, because our Fozy are cool and jazzy. I think that's why we all like jazz too, is because jazz is improvisational, sailing is improvisational. Speaking of one of the great improvisers in our sport, our first Fozy Focus contribution, another one, this one today from Blake Middleton, who was running last weekend on a chilly day at Lake Minnetonka, the last race of the year up there in Minnesota.
Good morning to Julia, Tom, John in the UK. This is Blake Middleton reporting from Lake Minnetonka, and we are doing our final race of the year here. It's the Frostbite Cup, which sometimes is cold. This year it's not. The temperature actually has ranged from the 20s to the 70s here in the last week and a half or so, 2 weeks or so. And this morning it was in the 40s. It's kind of built up already to the 50s, I think, low 50s. It's pretty comfortable. And we have only 12 boats racing, which is weird. But because I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago, the water depth of Lake Minnetonka has been incredibly low because we've had no rain this summer, basically. So a lot of the boats were hitting bottom, trying to even get out to the crane to pull their boats out for the season. So a lot of them elected to leave earlier. Now, you may remember that on Lake Minnetonka, Lake Wayzata Yacht Club, this is the Wayzata Yacht Club series, our average turnout for a Thursday night race for the last 20 years, average turnout for every single Thursday has been 113 boats for 20 years, every Thursday, 14-week series, which is pretty unusual. Most clubs might have one regatta where they have a lot of boats, but hardly a series every single week. And for this race, we basically got our finishers coming up, so I'm going to have to do race officer again. I'm going to spin it around. This is Dominic up there waving. He might be waving. There he goes. Now he's waving. And he's helping me out. We've got our Markset boat is also out focusing on getting the buoy straightened out. And I just wanted to report live and let you know I was having fun. Today we're actually in a different signal boat. We're in a 1987 Boston Whaler. They last forever pretty much. And that's what we're doing for signal boat today. And my office is different, but I still like my office. Everybody, thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of information.
Thank you, Blake Middleton, who is just a wonderful guy. Another one that has been giving so much to our sport as a race officer, as a coach at Stanford many years ago. When I first met him, he came to work for us at what was then USYRU, U.S. Yacht Racing Union. And he's been a colleague and a friend for, I guess, the better part of, what, Blake, 40 years, 50 years? Yeah, Peter Taylor saying, thank you, Blake. And yes, Stingray, it's amazing to think that they get 113 boats average on a Thursday night. The racing, I think, at least here in this country, is now more popular. You know, you have the odd weekend regattas, but I think the regular weekly racing, at least at our little lake in Michigan, and I think a lot of your places, a lot of your clubs, is on the weekdays, Thursday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. San Diego Yacht Club, certainly, Thursday night down at Balboa Yacht Club, Wednesday nights here at St. Francis Yacht Club, because people are busy on the weekends with family affairs and soccer and shopping and whatever else people are doing. So cool stuff. Another nice vlog from a video blog, Gordon Smith, totally agree. Nicely done, Blake. Jonathan Frank is saying. And again, Stingray, that 113 boats average, it is impressive. And everybody's saying congratulations to Alistair. It's nice to have friends in high places here on the Sailing Illustrated show. That sailing, what did somebody called it? Pregnancy Illustrated? I don't know about that. Another submission from another Fosy Focus. This from Peter Stevenson, Pedro Foiling Sailor down in Sydney. Nice video. Have a look.
It's another beautiful morning on Sydney Harbour. Coming around here into White Bay. Ferry is pulling in there. Oh, and this morning I'm just helping out a neighbour who needs some work done on the boat with the harbour bridge just in the background there.
Helping out a neighbor, helping out a friend. That, of course, is Pedro Foiling Sailor, a.k.a. Peter Stevenson, who's a regular contributor on here by now and a cool guy. My mother loves this guy. He keeps in touch with her, and he keeps in touch with Julia. And it's this, you know, these people never met each other. I've met a lot of you in person, although increasingly we are, and it is so much fun to get to know all of you, whether online, virtually, or in person. Jonathan Frank, not as many wankers on the water during the week. I think that was Sunday morning. I think that was actually early Sunday morning. Stingray, loved that quick vid from Sydney. Yep. Gordon Smith, I remember the creepy tour of Sydney Harbor from Peter at the beginning of COVID. Yes, not a person to be seen. Julie Aarons, the busy days for those of us who sail in Cleveland are Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. Yep, from May through September. Thanks, Peter Stevenson, for that. Another cool video. And again, invite any of you who want to submit a video. Blake is now doing it regularly. Peter does it from time to time. And of course, Alistair and John. And we're getting submissions from Ed Worley. And we had those terrific submissions from Greg Phillips when he was in Canada and in the U.S., in the Northeastern and New England, before going back to Oz. I think you're back in Oz now, aren't you, Greg? This day in history is an interesting one. And again, I have to go through and pick out something that this one's not really relevant to sailing, but of all the things that happened on November 1st, you have to pick something out that is hopefully relevant to many of you, if not most of you. Have a look. It's 1512. This day in history on the 1st of November, 1512. And at this point, I'd usually go over there to Julia and say, "Now, Julia, do you know what happened on this day in history, 1512? Here's your first clue." Anybody know? You're Googling it. I can hear you clacking and clicking on your keyboards. Your first clue. Here's your Sistine Chapel. Gordon Smith got it pretty quick. Here's the second clue. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeedy. The Sistine Chapel. Clark Chapin's got it. Blake Middleton's got it. But what happened? Ed Worley's got it. They all recognize that from that part, that one famously, this is, supposedly humanity reaching out to God and vice versa and not quite being able to touch. When did he go sailing? Well, his rival, Da Vinci, was not sure he was a sailor, but certainly a scientist contributor to this, as well as an artist. Did Michelangelo fall from the ceiling on this day? What happened on this day, November 1st? You know, it's apocryphal. Apparently it's not true. A lot of people like to think that he was on top of a big scaffolding and painted all of the ceiling on his back. And apparently that's not true. I read several different things and have a good friend, Niccolo Porzio, who is from Florence. And he said, no, that was never true. He stood up there but still, can you imagine painting that for 4 years? And it wasn't just the ceiling. It was also, let's go back and look at the bigger picture. It wasn't just the ceiling, but that whole deal. But to be, and apparently he read through the Bible, because these are all biblical representations of biblical stories, and to be reading through the Bible over and over again to gain inspiration for these various, frescoes you'd call them. And he did have some apprentices, apparently. Who's Facebook user? Is that J. Frederick Bland? He didn't finish it today, Julie Ahrens. It might not be true, but it made a great movie about him painting on his back. You know, I also read that, that Netflix, to produce, I guess, that movie, replicated the entire, replicated it. They commissioned some people to paint a replica of the Sistine Chapel, the ceiling and the walls. And then it's all gone. After they did it, it was destroyed and it's gone forever. So what did happen on this day in history? What did Michelangelo do? Well, before we get to that, he's, of course, considered one of the greatest artists of all time and a leading artist during the Italian Renaissance. Michelangelo, as you would say in Italian, was a painter, sculptor, architect, and poet, considered the original Renaissance man. Michelangelo's career ran alongside and was often compared to that of his rival, Leonardo da Vinci. So back on the comments, he could have finished faster had he used a roller. Julie Ahrens. Yeah, St. Bartholomew's reference is creepy. Flayed. Stunning. Have been there several times. Stingray is saying it's worth taking your time in there, soaking it all in. Yeah, I have as well. I've been in there, I think, once, maybe twice. He had a bosun's chair. I don't know about that. What does that mean? Unpaid interns. Well, apparently he kept trying to escape, go back to Florence to escape this whole project because it was so laborious, it was so difficult and so time-consuming. But on this day in history, in 1512, November 1st, Michelangelo's paintings on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican were first exhibited to the public. They had a kind of a soft opening a few days before, from what I read. And then today they opened it to the public, and people, needless to say, and by all accounts, old and contemporary, were gobsmacked. They were just astonished at what he had achieved on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. In this day in history, let's get to the America's Cup and an AC-37 Cup date. And we've been talking about the AC-40s, and this is thanks to Ben Ainsley's team, to Ineos Britannia. We finally have an explanation of what's going on between the One Design 40s and the Bespoke 40s. This from their press release of a few days ago. Teams for the 37th America's Cup are allowed to build only one AC-75 race boat. Okay, we all knew that. I'm sure you all knew that. There are no second chances, so the British America's Cup team, Ineos Britannia, hopes the 40-foot test boat they launched today, which was on the 27th of last month of October, 5 days ago, will play a vital role in the team's program through to the next America's Cup in 2024. Codenamed T6, they will commence with an extensive testing period from the team's new base in Palma. I'm not sure why they chose Palma, but the cycling out there and their connection to cycling, and they thought they'd get more sailing days, but conditions are rather different. The team's new base in Palma, primarily aimed at validating their design tools and testing key componentry ahead of the design deadline to start the build of the team's AC-75 race boat. Remember, that's coming up here pretty quickly, since the Cup is at the latter stages of 2024, and you got to start building the boat in 2023 to have it ready. It's at least a 6-month build, maybe 7 months, and then you got to have time to get it up and get it worked up, and then to do some serious practicing, get it to the venue, and then do the racing. I read you that. Now here's another picture. This thing looks a little bit like a Tesla truck, the squared off edges and strange looking boat. This is a bespoke 40. These are not the One Design 40s that they'll be used in the Women's and the Youth America's Cups. The protocol allows teams, this again according to Ineos Britannia's press release, allows teams to have LEQ 12 yachts, which translated means a boat that is less than or equal to 12 meters, 40 feet. While entrants are required to buy the new AC40, the One Design AC40s, which was created by the New Zealand Defender for testing and training along with use in the Youth and Women's America's Cup, both the Italian, meaning Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, and British campaigns have gone a step further by developing their own LEQ 12s. There are 3 key reasons why we built T6, and they're probably all equally valid, explained Ben Ainsley, Sir Ben, Ineos Britannia CEO and skipper. Quote, firstly, we have this new partnership with Mercedes-AMG F1 Applied Science. It's a big deal trying to bring 2 design groups together and define common working practices, processes, he might have said, and everything else that goes into designing a successful America's Cup boat. Here's another view of this first boat, their bespoke AC40. Secondly, Ben says, we came out of AC36 lacking confidence, you think, lacking confidence in our design tools. Ultimately, we made key decisions, design decisions in the last Cup using our design tools and our simulation, and they weren't accurate enough. In fact, they weren't accurate probably at all. This was borne out in the end result across our hull, foil designs, and performance. So that's the second reason why they're doing this. AC40, the bespoke AC40. Lastly, while it's fantastic to see ETNZ put out the AC40, and that boat, that's again the One Design AC40s, then that boat will undoubtedly get a huge amount of use both as a testing platform and as a racing platform. We wanted to control our own destiny. We wanted full control over our own testing platform and not be reliant on a third party to provide that platform. So we had control over our testing strategy. I thought that was all very interesting. Now, he mentioned in that press release, of course, that Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli have done the same, and there was big, I had this picture on my Facebook page, and it got so many shares, as if people didn't know this had happened. I thought this was pretty well known across the sailing world, but, people read different things, so that's why we do this show. And LRPP have done their own bespoke 40, which was commissioned not too long ago. And they capsized in Cagliari, down there in the southeastern corner of Sardinia, where they have their training base. And here is a video of their training.
Spit Hill, Helmston.
Can you tell us something about what happened? So you guys capsizing, just talk us through what happened.
Yeah, no, we had a great day. I mean, we got some good sailing in, got to go out in some pretty good waves as well. And yeah, it was just one of those capsizes where you get caught slow boat speed, very similar to actually we saw the Kiwis do in the AC40. And yeah, just one of those ones where you get down speed and nothing to do with sailing.
Perfect. And we saw some tow to fly takeoff, although the good breeze. Can you talk us, explain why you guys chose to do that?
Yeah, it was pretty big waves out there, but yeah, all in all, though, I thought it was a pretty good day. You know, it was just great to get out there, get sailing. Definitely in the top end condition there at the end. And look, if it wasn't for the sunlight going down, we would have kept sailing as soon as we pulled the boat up.
Perfect. So, what's your feeling on this prototype of your guys?
Yeah, look, I mean, we just need to get some more sailing time. The last few days we've had no wind, so it just hasn't been that good of an opportunity. Today we had, obviously a lot more wind and pretty big waves, but still great to get out there, and hopefully the next few days we'll get out there again.
Perfect. Thank you, Jimmy.
No worries.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not going to read all these comments, but they're coming through fast and furious. It's hard. It's hard to find anybody at least the yacht clubs in which I hang out that are interested in the Cup, or that know anything about the Cup, or that care about the Cup. And I must say, I am less motivated at this stage about the next Cup than I ever have been. I hope it comes good. I'm going to keep running the videos. There was another video of Lingy, who I still think are the top challenger, and they're, of course, where are they? They're in Barcelona testing. And there's been no wind, and they got towed around for the spy video. They're releasing all these spy videos. They towed around to try to get the boat foiling and to test some things. And they've now, Alinghi, have got this boomless boat that's now been developed. Maybe I'll run that video on Friday. But man, these boats are ugly. They don't relate to anything that the rest of us do in the sport. I mean, catamarans, at least, you kind of relate to. We can do that. Foiling catamarans, okay, a little less so. Foiling is okay. But these boats, as Stingray said, the funny thing with all the 40s so far is that when they stop, they tend to capsize. Clark Chapin, who picked the paint scheme of the LRPP boat? Not enough camo to disguise the shape, but ugly. Well, it looks a little bit like the court jester to me. Don't quote me. Here's a really good point. You see that Ed Worley comment, third from the bottom? No, it's up higher than that. Where is it, Ed? I wonder if the COVID issues in China will delay building enough AC40s. Yeah, the comments are... Well, you saw what happened with Apple's, the iPhone, what are they up to, 14? And in that Foxconn plant in China because of COVID. John Emmett's been saying all along, the Chinese, I don't know why, they must know something about that virus we don't know, because they are still bound and determined not to let anybody get it. Somebody has COVID and, instead of the rest of us who are now kind of, it's going to be with us, it's endemic, we're going to have to deal with it. But maybe the Chinese know something we don't know. Maybe I'll drop dead this week after having it and not relaxing enough. We'll get Andrew McIrvin back on here ASAP. Jonathan Frank, doesn't that paint job remind you of the paint schemes they used on transport convoys back in the Second War? John Dishner, 25 or 50 years from now, I wager people will be racing Stars, Dragons, 12 meters, vintage 12, 6 meters, and J-class and other time-tested designs. That is because in part of their design aesthetic, not because they're the fastest. I wager by then these foiling boats will be in garbage dumps, long obsoleted by the next fastest thing. Not saying we shouldn't pursue next fastest thing, we should, but that there is always a place for good-looking, good sailing classic boats, so maybe both have a place in sailing, just understand their place. I wouldn't have released that video. Baton Rouge is saying something is off. Yeah, they were towing a lot in that. Julie Aaron says it's such a fantastic paint job, but perhaps they should have paid more attention to the what? I think that they pushed too hard too soon. Peter Taylor likes the paint scheme, but it's probably better if it doesn't show its bottom for us to have the discussion. Okay, a lot of comments. Razzle dazzle, paint jobs. Blake Middleton, just my opinion, but I don't care about the American Cup at all, to be honest. Okay, there's a lot of funny comments. John Emmett at Weymouth at the weekend, the kites raced in strong winds. The 470s did not. Yeah, okay. I think our sport has become, I'm going to give a little love to their sponsors. Our sport has become, it's still declining, notwithstanding what Blake can report. Now, what are the boats sailing? 113 boats, Blake, was average on your, Thursday night races at Lake Minnetonka. They're sailing J22s, J24s, scows, even though they got shallow water this year because not much rain. Our sport has become so expensive and so highly technical, and when America's Cup boats have no afterlife, the IACC boats arguably did a little bit, but they were pretty expensive and technical too. And yeah, there's some sailing around in Auckland, there's some sailing around in San Diego, maybe one or two other places. Lots of 12 sailing around, even J boats sailing around. But if you don't have an afterlife for these boats, I think we're making a mistake. That alone, I think, is a mistake. What other comments here? We're a very diverse sport, but that spreads the participation, John Emmett is saying. Fog Machine, the RYC. What is the R? Is that Richmond Yacht Club? Great Pumpkin had 170 entrants on Sunday. Fantastic. Jonathan Frank, it goes back to your comment about TP52s. Yes, those boats have an afterlife. It goes on and on and on. There was a great interview with Ray Davies this week where he suggested this boat concept may mature to the point they become around-the-world racers and record breakers. Yeah, don't hold your breath. Ray's got to say that. Ray's a great guy and a great bass player, by the way. The comments are coming in fast and furious. Okay, let's move to now the land speed. We told you they've gotten a lot of rain. Our Aussie foes have been telling us a lot of rain in South Central Australia, and it's still wet. It's drying out a little bit. This is their latest report from a day or two ago. Have a look.
Hopefully get a couple of little runs in. Anyway, it might be a bit slippery slidey in the wet, but pretty used to water, so hopefully it'll be all right. Yeah, so look, we've made our way back to the surface here at Lake Gairdner. We've had about 4 days where there's been a little bit of rain and unfortunately put more water back on the lake again. So it just dries out, then it seems to rain again, which has been a little bit of bad luck. But what we are going to try and do today, we've done some tailplane adjustments on Horonuku. So what we're looking at doing is doing a little bit of a test to see if we can actually self-start the craft on our own, which is actually part of the rules. You're not allowed to tow up to speed. You have to start from a standing start, but you can be pushed by humans. To break the record, basically we need about an average speed over 3 seconds of 205 kilometres an hour. That's about 1 mile an hour greater than the 202.9 kilometres an hour. That is the current record at the moment. There is still a little bit of water on the surface at the moment, but we are finding some dry patches, and as this afternoon progresses, we've got sort of 15 to 20 knots this afternoon. The salt's literally drying before our eyes, the water's all evaporating, and hopefully we'll have some nice little runway to get out and do some runs this afternoon. Yeah, look, we've done quite a few runs, which has been absolutely fantastic. We've had some pretty puffy and shifty breeze, anything from sort of 10 knots through to 20 knots. We were sort of hoping for more 20 knots and a bit above, but The runs that we did, you probably went through, 10 knot puff and lull, 5 knots either side of probably 14 or 15 knots. So very difficult to know exactly what you're in because we were radioing through the wind on the anemometers at each end, and it could be 10 knots difference at times. But yeah, learnt heaps. We learnt some good setup stuff, and absolutely fantastic to get out and do some runs. The salt's drying out really beautifully, so that's something that's really positive as we move forwards over the next few days.
Yeah, Jeff Ogle, who's saying yawn. A lot of you are interested in this. I'm interested in this. I think that they are learning things, as I've said. I've sort of done a 180 on, because one hears, they're learning some things that are applicable to their next Cup program. Stingray, who of course is a retired engineer coder at Boeing, says the tailplane needs some tuning. Funny looking bobsled Jonathan Frank, who of course is an airline pilot. He flies 777s for United these days, left seat. Blake, yeah, I thought the same thing, Blake, when you said push by humans is always the way ice boat races start. Stingray says he thinks as soon as the lake dries, these guys are going to nail it, and they're going to smash the record. But he says, I wouldn't dare get into that thing. I don't know. I'd love to get into it. I would. Ted Ryman is saying, I love this thing, more tech. Yep, well, we'll see. A lot of tire friction. Clark Chabin is, of course, an automotive engineer. A lot of tire friction on that surface. I think it might be better if they get a couple of dry days in. Yeah, well, of course. They need it really to dry. Well, it's spring now. It's getting to be summer down there, so we shall see how it goes in due course. Let's look ahead to this weekend. There's one of the coolest races ever, offshore race called the Route de Rhum is taking place. Starts in Saint-Malo in France, and I think we're going to cover this, not live, but we're going to follow it. It starts Sunday, and they're racing from Saint-Malo down to Guadeloupe. And the Route de Rhum, it's called, Destination Guadeloupe, giving some love to their destination city and island, in the Caribbean. Created in 1978 by Michael Etevenan. Is that how you say that? The Route de Rhum Destination Guadeloupe is regarded as the queen of solo transatlantic races. For 44 years, the race has joined Saint-Malo in Brittany to Pointe-à-Pitre. Is that how you say that? In Guadeloupe, it musters the biggest fleet ocean racing of all levels on the same starting line. This transatlantic course, at a total distance of 3,542 miles, has become legendary as its unique magic is all about the range of different classes and the mix of competitors. Actually, bravo Zulu to that. Some of the best solo racers in the world of sailing, professionals and amateur, meet every 4 years to taste, quote, the magic of the rum. Some of us meet more often than not. No, more often than that to taste the magic of rum, including at the Hot Rum Series down at San Diego Yacht Club here, coming up later this month. This is the race course, and it's a straight shot, or as straight a shot as you want to make it, from Saint-Malo in Brittany in France down to Guadeloupe. But when they get to Guadeloupe, they have to loop the island counterclockwise. You remember what happened last time to one of our favorite sailors? This is a single-handed race, one man or a woman, one boat, the ocean. The concept is simple and easy to understand, and above all, this is a French race loved by a nation that knows and loves solo races. The Route de Rhum, Destination Guadeloupe, all racers must cover the 3,543 nautical miles, which is 6,500 Ks. A nautical mile is equivalent to 1,800 Ks, as you know, 1,850 Ks. They all start at the same time on a single starting line. The first in each class to cross the finish line in Guadeloupe wins. And I know a lot of you, and John Sangmaster just signed down, who's just back. I think he's back from Europe. He and his wife were in Paris and in Geneva last week. Welcome back, John. Thanks for your photos, and I hope you had a good time. Being the plus one to your wife, the lawyer who was at a conference, I guess, in Geneva. and John and others of you, including Andrew McUrban, have encouraged us to cover this. Andrew Pindar as well, and Mark Husted and so on. We're going to, because we covered it in 2018 too. I had forgotten it was 4 years ago that we, seems like yesterday. But cool race. Here is a very quick video in French previewing the race, which starts Sunday. Music is probably not to all of your likings, but woke me up anyway. We're an hour and a half into the show, and good Eurotrash music, Sangmeister is saying. Reply, what other comments here? Reply, you know, the nice thing about this, about our group, is that you'd have to, most other shows, you would have to have somebody watching these things. You couldn't even put them up like I do. I just go click to them. And there's never a curse word. There's never any crutonicism. Thank you all. You're wonderful. And my ears hurt. Ed Worley is saying, drop the chalupa. Yeah, Jonathan Frank. No, we are talking real boats doing real shiza, real stuff, Jeff Ogles. Now we are talking, I think is what he said. Now we are talking. Yeah, exactly. Replying to Mark has so true and had to withdraw. What else? Any other comments? 50 plus open 40s, John Sangmeister is saying. Yes, indeed. And one of our favorites is, of course, from the UK, Pip Hare. And this was an article released today. They've got a great website that is for the overall Route de Rhum website in English and in French and maybe other languages, but for sure in English and French. In this article today, safety paramount for Pip Hare during the Route de Rhum first hours. Approaching her first, I did not know this was her first. She'd done the Vendée, of course. Her first Route de Rhum destination, Guadeloupe. Pip Hare is taking a necessarily cautious approach, especially for the first 24 to 36 hours. The British skipper lit up the last Vendée Globe with her effervescent, I love that, joie de vivre, during her first adventures in the Southern Ocean and her tenacious attack with one of the oldest boats in the race. Nice writing. She has more than enough deep ocean racing miles, even with her new foiling medallia, to race the course at close to 100%. But as is the case with most solo IMOCA, the IMOCA 60 skippers, most of all, she is under huge pressure just to finish the race into Guadeloupe to accumulate miles to secure qualification for the next Vendée Globe, which is currently oversubscribed. So we'll be watching her and any number of the other favorites. There's her yacht Medallia. New one. It's a new boat. It's her first Route de Rhum in her new yacht Medallia. So have a look. Now, I got some great photos courtesy of their website. This is last night. Last night in Sao Malo. What a scene. I mean, this is during the day and at night. There are just wonderful crowds. Race doesn't start till Sunday. They've had parades. They've had skippers' press conferences. And I was texting back and forth, as I often do, with Mr. Dr. Andrew McUrban this morning, of course, as the Secretary General of the International Maxi Association, and really, in many ways, Mr. Offshore Racing, whether it's single-handed racing or whether it's the RORC style racing and anything else. He said to me this morning, and I asked him if I could use this quote, and he said, by all means, it probably will be the best ever Route de Rhum, as nearly all are sponsored, and the coming recession will result in less sponsorship. So he thinks there's not only the pent-up demand of the last 4 years, but there's a lot of sponsorship, and maybe it's not, sponsorship may start to go away after this. The crowds in Sao Malo are amazing. The French population really love this stuff. And that, of course, our good friend in FOSI, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, the British surgeon, consulting surgeon. And he also put me onto these photos, which are not from the website. They're actually from James Boyd. These are from today. Those night photos were from last night. These are from today. And what a wonderful festival of our sport, of yacht racing, of sailing, in San Malo, leading up to the start on Sunday. And there'll be live coverage of that online, yada, yada. And thanks, James Boyd, and thanks, Andrew, for referring these photos to me so I could run them for all of you. For the Route de Rhum, they're in San Malo now, and then they're expected to be in Guadalupe roughly the 11th of November through the 4th of Diciembre in December. The 12th Route de Rhum starts Sunday, the quadrennial event, and we shall be following that with great interest. Comments here. San Malo is a magical city, Sangmeister is saying. How can we follow it? Well, I think you can watch it online. In fact, this is a webcam. That's live. And what time is it there? It's 10:36 at night there, 22:36 CET in San Malo. And you can still see there's people and parties and on a Tuesday night. A little bit of breeze and a lot of interest, needless to say. What else? You can follow it online, Jonathan Frank. Just Google their website, Route de Rhum, and you'll see it. Yeah, Andrew McIrvin said, luckily it was rebuilt after it was bombed flat by the Brits in World War II. Yeah, back and forth on that comment. Yeah, Guadeloupe is a French territory, Stingray, in the Caribbean, obviously. What else? Any other comments for all that? Okay, we got a corrector crew tonic for you. I keep turning that audio down too, and it seems to get louder. Maybe I got to turn the audio down on that slide. But I love Jody Shields, and we love the segment he inspired, corrector crew tonic. Several of you sent this to me. This is from Amazon. And you'll all see it, I'm sure, in an instant, whether it's correct or crutonic. Max must be some Chinese company making boat navigation lights, but look, it's got 1,100 ratings, 4.5 stars. Marine navigation lights, bow lights for boats, LED, ideal for pontoon and small boats. Plated silver. I don't know why they plated silver. Corrector crutonic. Well, I don't know if the lights are any good, but as you can all see, the diagram ain't correct. Because why? Yeah, how scary is the red versus green? Oh, my goodness. That is crutonic for sure, Stingray, because the green should be on the starboard side, as you all know, and the red should be on the port. You pass port to port, red to red. Amazon, somebody needs to tell Amazon that. Several of you sent that to me. I appreciate it very much. And I think especially Ted Ryman, again, I think was the prime sender of that. It is crutonic. Do they also do fiberglass repair? They might explain it, Clark Chapin. St. Francis Yacht Club had reverse lights on one of the race committee boats until I swapped them earlier this season. Fire machine. Yeah, bad. Do they also, what else? Oh, my garage. Yeah, indeed. How scary is the red versus green? Okay, enough of that. Gets us to the D block, and we just got a couple jokes for you here in the final block of the show. And we dedicate this to Julia, who would, none of these are finger waggers, but we so miss you, Julia. I know you're watching at the convalescent home, and hope you're back here. If not Friday, come next week. We'll see. Thank you for this one. I won't say who sent this, but we talked about the new prime minister and about the outgoing Liz Truss when we a week before last, and now there's some hilarious memes being sent in. Fetch us a cuppa, Abdul. I'm waiting for the prime minister, says King Charles, which obviously he didn't say, but it's still funny. Now, see, you could, in the U.S., people would go nuts because it's, it's obviously racist. It's, but it's funny. Come on. And this guy, the interesting thing is that this guy, apparently he and his wife are very affluent and have done very well in business. And the wife's from a wealthy family, an Indian family, I guess. And he's worth more than King Charles. Interesting. I ran it on my Facebook page, but one of the first things that Rishi, the new PM, did was to sink Boris's yacht. The PM acts as the $250 million vanity project. Remember, Boris wanted to do a yacht for the PM, and it was going to promote England. It was going to promote Great Britain, and they were going to use it for all sorts of stuff. It got axed, axed by the new PM. This was sent in, again, in recognition of this being World Vegan Day. And there's all sorts of horrible vegan jokes, but this was good enough. Thanks to Ted Ryman, I've been vegan for 6 months, and I've never felt better, said Taylor Swift. Any of you vegans? I can understand vegetarianism, sort of. I think you need the protein, and you get the protein from the meat. And if you want to eat lean meat, eat chicken. And there are some people, and I, for a long time, claimed to be a pescatarian, mostly fish and a little bit of chicken, but lean meat. But I don't know. I like being a carnivore, and I feel better when I'm a carnivore. I just don't like to eat sugar and don't like to eat carbs. But Taylor Swift, if you want to be a vegan, thanks, Ted Ryman, for that. Stingray saying, ha, 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 boo. Facebook user saying, boo. Rishi is 10 times smarter than Truss. All good, Stingray saying. What else? Russell Coots is vegan. Is he vegetarian or vegan, Maura? I don't know. He is. Ask a vegan. Do you wear shoes made of leather? Well, I like Beefeater gin, John. Frank is saying. I have to do my cough switch. You guys, I can't laugh until I get completely over this code. I've tested negative, and I'm interesting. Apparently, what other comments? Apparently, you are probably only communicative. You're only able to infect somebody else probably 8 days or so after first exhibiting symptoms. And this is what Andrew McIrvin was telling me. I've read a couple other articles. Even the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control in this country, revised their advice. After 8 days, you're probably no longer contagious, but you keep testing. Some people, several of you have said you've been testing positive. I think Blake Middleton, you said you've been testing positive since, for quite some time after you did, for quite some time, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after you had it. And anyway, for me, it was, and thanks again for all your well wishes. It was never more than much. It was even, I've had worse hangovers by far, and not very many, of course, but it was just a cold, not even a bad cold, a mild cold, mild symptoms. Okay, we're to the finish line, and Blake Middleton is saying that his COVID symptoms are still active 2 months later. Well, some people, any number of you, Alistair Murray's had a rough go, big picture, long term. Steve Adkins, several others of you have mentioned that it's been hanging on, and whether it's upper respiratory or inflammation of something, God forbid you get inflamed, you get one of the heart inflammation diseases. But stay healthy, stay fit. I think you don't want to get it if you can avoid it. It's probably pretty hard to avoid it. I was among the last people I knew who had not had it. Julia still hasn't had it. So we shall see. But back to the finish line, Jonathan Frank says he still has an annoying cough. So you can hear me being a little sniffly here. Okay, please, if you will, like, follow, and share, as we always like to say. If Julia were here, she would say that for us. Julia, we're all wishing you a speedy recovery. I hope you get back here in the saddle, back in the saddle again, sooner than later. And comments, of course, those of you watching in replay, comments are welcome too, even in replay. Just remember, no name calling. We never have I don't even have to say this anymore. No personal attacks. No croutonicism. No coarse language, please. Support us on Patreon if you would. Patreon.com/join. Sailing Illustrated. Give us a few bucks a month. It helps keep the bills paid here, keeps us on the air. But we really do this out of the love of the sport and the love of all of our FOSI, all of you. And the show is increasingly a FOSI show, which we appreciate very much. Any of you want to send in contributions, as now many of you do, not just John Emmett's regular contributions and Alistair's, but others. We appreciate it very much. Blake Middleton, it's cool to see what goes on at Lake Minnetonka, Minnesota on a cold 40 degree, maybe finally got up to 50 when he was done with that race. And again, to see what's going on down in Sydney Harbor. Thank you very much, Peter Stevenson. To say nothing of the Greg Phillips contributions by video when he was in Nova Scotia and in Newport, Rhode Island. Appreciate that very much. We appreciate everybody that gives us video and images and audio for today's show. That wraps it for us. Thank you again for your very kind comments. And we'll see you on Friday. In the meantime, we hope you have a great rest of your week. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.